the question that I think would be really good to answer, Mayor Tyer, is for, I think, the general public, is to explain to them how progress is not going to harm them, but it's also going to help the city.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we have, progress around the economy and job creation. Mm-hmm. These are opportunities for people who are underemployed or unemployed to take advantage of job opportunities. Advancing a diverse business economy is the antidote for being a company town, right? So we had generations of people who worked at GE, who it was a great pride in families to be a GE employee, to be part of the GE family. It was as you said a moment ago, it was an identity. Mm-hmm. And so that loss of identity is traumatic.
Yeah.
And now as we're starting to think about rebuilding our city, rebuilding our economy, and doing it in a way that's diverse, where we have more small businesses or mid-sized businesses, then that's not going to work.
Right.
We can only measure our success by another big, huge corporate company coming in and creating 2,000 or 5,000 jobs. When you put that as your measure of success, and when that's not what's happening around the United States, you are setting yourself up for disappointment that way. My idea is making sure that we have diverse business economy, so that if one sector of the economy starts to stumble, you have enough diversity in the rest of the economy that we can stabilize our situation.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. And talk a little bit about some of your initiatives and policies that's created that diversity. So there is another situation that happened 30 some odd years ago, and how these new models are the best model for success. And how does it really relate to the everyday neighbor and the person? Yeah. So I think overarching everything that I do every day is this idea of diversity, right? The idea that we want, a diverse workforce, diverse neighborhoods, diversity in our schools, diversity in our economy. It's delicious. Yeah.
To have diversity in all areas of our life. And so, when, I became mayor, it was obvious to me that we had a lot of well-meaning people who wanted to build an economy, but everybody was in their own silo, and there wasn't enough alignment, and there wasn't enough streamlined strategic planning, action. And so once I recognized the flaw, and I knew that I had partners in the community who were feeling this same sort of, we're not making enough progress. We keep doing the same things over and over again, and we're not making progress. And so once we recognized that, we came together and put together a action plan where we joined efforts and streamlined our strategies and created an alignment. And that was the development of the red carpet team, which I've talked a lot about. And the red carpet team is made up of local and state economic development professionals who come and talk to a business leader, all in one audience. So the time that it's the bouncing around that would happen to a business leader, that's come to an end.
Gotcha.
So we put this process in place, a system in place, where a business leader that's here now, or someone who wants to come to our community, comes to the table with all of us, and they share their dream, their vision, their idea with this team of people. And then we can share back to them, here's how the state can help you. Here's how the city can help you. And we create this unique, tailored package of incentives to help meet that business opportunity. And so when you're supporting business, you're supporting good paying jobs and benefits for people and opportunities for people to get into a position entry level or to work their way through an organization. And we've had 14 red carpet team meetings. 8 of those have been with local businesses. So we are committed to supporting local businesses that are here now that want to grow and expand, because that's got to be part of the solution. Back to the idea that we're going to somehow recruit someone from outside of our region to be our savior. Yes, we want to keep doing that. We succeeded with Wayfair.
Yeah.
That's got to be part of the strategy, but also nurturing businesses that are here now. That's sort of where things have intersected nicely.
Yeah, I like that, because that's how you impact the community from the inside out. Yeah, and grow it from the bottom up or the middle out, as kind of Barack says, which I think is really cool. Talk a little bit about E for All and your efforts with that, because I think that's something that would directly relate to someone that's lived here, who's a dreamer, or who's, hey, so how does that, a little bit more about that program? Because I'm actually one of the judges for the pitch contest.
That's so cool.
I know, I'm so happy about it.
That's so great.
And I saw this work in Holyoke. And I saw massive amounts of just everyday entrepreneurs everyday people coming out of there with entrepreneurs and having, pretty successful businesses or on their way. That's another part of the diversity and opportunity you're talking about as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. There's a lot of people in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, or in the Berkshires who have an idea of a business or, a service or something that they think is going to, make life better for people, but they don't have the business acumen. And it takes both the creative side, the dreamer side, but there are some real pragmatic things that have to happen in order for a business to be successful. And so E for All is that accelerator that says to this dreamer, we think that your idea deserves an acceleration. So we're going to bring E for All, we're going to bring to you business acceleration, business coursework. We're going to bring mentors. We're going to give you a little bit of money, and we're going to help you build up your dream from the ground up. And the great thing about that is the diversity of people that might apply for E for All, and the diversity of new businesses that might emerge from that. So interesting. I was so the director of community development, Deanna Rufer, and I were on a trip to New Bedford for a economic development and housing conference. And on the drive down, she was telling me about E for All, and she was just so excited about it and felt like this is the next right thing for Pittsfield and the Berkshires in terms of keeping our engine humming. Yeah. And she was explaining it to me, and then she started getting into how much it's going to cost annually. And I was like, oh my goodness, Deanna, where are we going to come up with this money? Right. But while we were in New Bedford, we met with Jeremiah, who was the executive director of their E for All chapter. And he took us to this coffee shop that was an E for All student. Yeah. And I had the most incredible avocado toast and this delicious cup of coffee, all organic, in this darling coffee shop right in downtown New Bedford. Wow. And we talked for an hour. And when we left, I said to Deanna, this really has potential for our city. So let's figure out how to raise the money. And we just got busy talking to partners throughout Pittsfield and the county so that we could get E for All to Pittsfield. And, it took about a year for us to pull together all the partners, all the believers, all the ones who said, yep, we can support somebody from the West Side or somebody in the Morningside or somebody down in Lee who has an idea, but doesn't know how to get it off the ground. And that was really refreshing to have as many community partners join us in this effort. Nice.
I think, for me and for anybody who's going to be listening to this particular podcast, I think the correlation that should be drawn is, for you, there might have been a missed opportunity, say, a corporation left and you lost your job, but for your kids and for your family and even for yourself, there's a new opportunity and an ecosystem that's been built for you to create another dream or move that forward. So, and I see that as super advantageous and as a really awesome story and opportunity for my neighbor, who I can say, oh, you have an idea, you can go check out E4All, and there's going to be mentors there for you. There's going to be opportunities for people to support you and things like that. Because I also think that's another part of changing it. How do we really connect it to that individual or that neighbor or just that person? You don't have to have all these skills, but you have a program that the city has brought to really support you in your idea at that stage and where you are.
I think there's this great opportunity too to strengthen the relationships that we have with each other. So you've got a dreamer who doesn't know how to make it real, but then you have these business leaders, business executives who are either in successful business environments now or maybe retired from successful careers. And you bring that together and you have this opportunity for the changed narrative, right? Because you're creating a relationship now.
Exactly.
So you're going to have 3 of these successful business executives rooting for this dreamer.
Right.
And there's this relationship that happens between people in this experience. So aside from the checklist of things that could happen, it's the strengthening of the relationships that is going to be vital for our community if we're going to be strong and we're going to move forward. That's, to me, is the real sort of interesting potential.
Yeah.
Right. So even I just think that I can't wait to see this evolve.
Yeah. I think there's a great opportunity. And I know that you're not talking the talk. You're like really walking the walk as it relates to this. I was at the AME church when you guys were talking in the West Side neighborhood. Warren Dews put that together.
Right, the community conversation.
Yeah, shout out to Warren Dews for that, because that was really great in terms of the community conversation. And one of the things that really stood out to me is what you were talking about in terms of relationship. And this is what you were talking about, not only relationships, but really building those collaborations and those community partners. Talk about how you think about that as you are trying to move towards making change in the city and how your administration has really worked through that, because I know that is something that you really, really strive for.
Yeah. So it goes back to this calling that I feel I have this one moment in time as the mayor of our city to leave a lasting impression or to leave the place better than I found it. And it goes back to strengthening relationships, creating diversity, honoring it. But also, so an example of that is over on the West Side, we created the West Side Community Outreach Post. And what I just love about it, so it started out because there was a violent crime in the neighborhood and that people were upset about it, rightfully so.
Right.
And they demanded a community meeting. And I came to the meeting with my team and we listened to their heartache. And in the course of that community conversation, the idea of having a greater police presence in a subtle way in the neighborhood might ease people's fears. So we came up with this concept of creating an outreach post. And what was going to be required was neighborhood participation. The police department wasn't just going to come in, and I didn't want them to, and sort of occupy the West Side.
Right.
That wasn't what I thought was going to be essential for strengthening the neighborhood. And so what's happened is we've got these neighborhood leaders, these emerging neighborhood leaders who have been trained by the Pittsfield Police Department to understand policing to a small degree, to be able to talk to people talk to neighbors and residents about it, be a place where someone can drop in and just maybe have a conversation. They've turned into community navigators. So the original intention of strengthening the relationship between the neighborhood and the police, that's happening because there's relationships being built.
Right.
Based not on a crisis, but relationships that are being built because they're talking to each other, they're teaching each other. But it's also evolved now to these neighborhood leaders who are taking on more than just being the conduit between neighborhood and police. That, to me, this emergence of these neighborhood leaders is sort of that's the real deal.
Right. And I like the fact that you're empowering them with that. I heard that also, and I want to get into this because I think there's another aspect that I know you don't want to toot as much as your own horn about it, but I think it's really interesting is I know there was a lighting issue and there were some other things. And I heard that I heard you did some really cool, interesting stuff around that, like actually getting out there yourself and saying, so like kind of walk us through that, because I think that's the other part that people need to know about you and what you're willing to commit to as mayor.
Yeah. So in the community meeting, aside from, hearing that people were rightfully upset about what happened, they also told me the streetlights are out, and the park, the landscape around the park is so overgrown that people don't feel safe in there. And there's a house across the street with a lot of garbage in the backyard. So I'm pulling all of this information from the people who are on the ground. So I spent some time driving around the neighborhood, walking the neighborhood, getting my feet on the ground, and with my team saying, let's get the streetlights fixed. Come on over here to this park and prune down all these trees, open up the space, make it sunshiny. Let's start working on getting this neighbor who's not responsible to the other neighbors, get this garbage cleaned up. Let's start, because the lifting up of a neighborhood or the stabilizing of a neighborhood isn't just about a police presence. It's about making sure that we are addressing all the issues that confront that neighborhood. And unless we are on the ground and unless we know what it is, you can't address it from every angle. I have this, there, in every area of my work, people want there to be a silver bullet. Just do this one thing and the sun will come out and the birds will sing and we'll have peace in the land. It's silver birdshot, right? It's not one single solution. It takes a whole bunch of things happening at the same time. And so, making sure that we're, to the best of our ability, talking about and solving problems in all those areas is to me where you really prove to people who feel disenfranchised that you care.
Exactly. What is your vision for Pittsfield over the next 4 years? If you say you were reelected, and what does that mean over the next 4 years in terms of what you're willing to push further forward, and what do people have to look forward to?
So I think we've got this incredible moment in our economy to keep building that economy, so that people who live here now have opportunities for personal prosperity. Kids who graduate from our high schools and go off to college can come back, have a job, live in a great neighborhood, send their kids to outstanding schools. So making sure that we're continuing to nurture this emerging energy around the economy. And that means doing things like E4All, which we talked about, but also making sure that we are advancing our technology. And we're going to undertake a study to determine if the city of Pittsfield could be a fiber optics internet service provider. So, everybody understands that the utilities and the cable companies for a very long time have not seen Pittsfield and the Berkshires as a market worth investing in. So let's take the bull by the horns and do it ourselves. And so if we are able to become this fiber optics utility, we're going to continue to be more competitive in the global economy. We're going to provide greater broadband for residents that live here so that you can come and live in this beautiful, pristine place and still have this incredible connection to the global economy. So that's one of the things I want to continue to focus on. Stabilizing neighborhoods and making our neighborhoods a place where people want to live. I think the millennial generation does things a little differently than I did when I graduated. I went to the place where the job was until I decided to come home where my people were. But I think that this next generation of humans will choose where they want to live because it offers a quality of life and an experience that feels right for them as humans. Yeah. And then they find the job. So we have this we have this opportunity, and this is where I want to go. This is where I want to drive our vision, which is keep building a place where people want to live and making sure we have the jobs to support that.
Gotcha. I think I'm going to get back to that because I think it's very interesting. One of the things that I find is that what I'm running into, and I'm sure you've kind of ran into the same thing, is that I feel like the voter who's 65 years old or 75-year-old is saying, well, you're bringing in all these young people and you're doing all this stuff in the change, but what about us? Mm-hmm. Don't forget about us. What, you know what I mean? And I think it was very interesting because here's what happened in Kansas City for me. And I thought it was very interesting is that, what are the advantages to someone who is that age and get ready to retire and saying, hey, yeah, you want all this change, but I need my street done. Am I going to have proper health care? And I'm like, ooh, great. This is a great opportunity because when you bring younger people in or whatever, we find they're more empathetic and more human centered. So they're wanting to volunteer with senior citizens and things of that nature. But how do they feel not forgotten about? Because I know, is that something you're running up against? Well,
I do think that there is a false narrative that I have forgotten about the seniors. But if you look at my actual record, that's not the case. And I think we have built this interesting ecosystem where we have really incredible market rate housing for active seniors to find a place to live. We have put lots of investment in our outdoor spaces where we know seniors want to walk a track or play with their grandchildren. So our parks and open spaces are centered around creating an age-friendly experience. So if you're 3 years old and you want to go play on the playground and grandma wants to go with you, there is that experience in these playgrounds. I think also this whole opportunity that E4All presents in terms of giving seniors this opportunity to get engaged in a new and different way as a teacher and a coach and a mentor for the next generation who's got a dream. We are also making sure that we're providing, regular, ordinary municipal services to every neighborhood though, right? So every neighborhood. We recently, one of the things that we've been able to do with regard to the tax impact that seniors might be feeling some pressure on, we lowered the age for a special senior exemption from 70 to 68. So more seniors would be eligible for that tax exemption. And I think when you have, I think we know for sure that the Berkshires and Pittsfield has this aging demographic. When you bring in the next generation, it provides some ease. So someone who's in their 30s that buys a house in our neighborhood is contributing to that tax economy that's providing some relief for the senior that feels like they're under some pressure. One of the real important measures of the health of a community is whether or not people are buying and selling houses. And in the last 3 years, we've had this incredible demand for homes in the city of Pittsfield. People are choosing to buy homes in our city. So if you're a senior and you want to sell your home and move into something, you want to downsize, there's a market. There is a buyer for you. And if you're a young professional and you're getting married and you're going to start your family, or there's a home for you. And the cost of living in our community is, compared to the rest of the Commonwealth, you cannot beat the cost of living or the quality of life that we have in Pittsfield. So I think, again, it's not going to be one single solution for seniors. Making sure that we're putting new infrastructure in place, that's all important. It's important if you're 3 years old or 65 years old. So if you're making your city stronger, it's going to support everyone.
I definitely love that. And I concur with the housing rate. We were just talking to, was it Waterfall and their company and their real estate. What is the name of it?
Perry Real Estate.
Perry Real Estate.
Jan Perry Real Estate.
And they were saying it was exploding. So I find that fascinating that you say that, because I think that's really cool. And it's also true. You
right.
know, because you're hearing it from the real estate people who are selling real estate that Pittsfield is a very hot market for that. And I like the way you correlated it to how it relates to seniors. What I want to know more is that, like, for me, I know my parents are getting old, you know, and my mom is, and what does this mean for them? I mean, because I want people to know, how does it connect to you personally? Because I know your parents are probably seniors.
They
so
are.
Tell me how, because I would feel like that would be a really good motivation in terms of why you're doing this type of work.
My grandmother's 95.
Wow.
My mother is 77. So I've got seniors in my life. And my grandmother is on a severely fixed income because she only had an 8th grade education. And so, you know, we're, as a family, making sure that she has access to elder care and resources to help her navigate healthcare systems, and making sure she's got the right kind of coverages, making sure that she has access to wellness visits. My mom is 77. And I was out in the neighborhoods a couple weeks ago knocking on doors, and I got a call from the Pittsfield Fire Department that they had taken my mom to the emergency room.
Wow.
She was having some chest pains, and she's fine. We got through it, and she's fine. But what I care about in that story is that the Pittsfield Fire Department was at my mother's house within 3 minutes of that phone call. And then comes the ambulance, right? So I want to make sure that we're supporting the Pittsfield Fire Department, because when my senior mom needs medical care, I want them to be there quickly. So investing in our fire protective services isn't just about fighting fires, it's about medical care. So, you know, there are so many private partners in the community that can help us with our senior population, and making sure that the city is connected and at those tables.
Yeah.
We can't be the solution for everything, but we can be a partner and help our seniors navigate life. You know, I think one of the things that happened just this past year is we had a group of seniors who are very active in the pickleball game. Who knew anything about pickleball? I didn't. And they were advocating for some pickleball courts in one of our parks. And we had a number of city councilors who said no. That broke my heart. This is a group of active retired seniors who love to play this sport. It's exploding across the country in terms of popularity. And so we, as an administration, me and my team we looked at a number of locations. We put together a proposal that we thought was going to be responsive to this group of seniors who said, can you help us? And we had a great plan. And the city council said no. So we'll keep at it. We'll keep trying. We'll go back to the drawing board because it's important.
I love that. And one of the things that I think that you talked about that your administration got involved in, I love the fact that you've been educating your administration. And let's delve into that, because as it really deals with race and class, and we'll start with class, because I think this is, but both of them are very much connected in a lot of ways. Your administration, you did something very interesting with your administration in terms of that, and working with Bridges Out of Poverty and Working Cities. And I was really impressed by that. I thought that, wow, this is somebody who's really trying to make a change. So I want you to tell the audience, like, what did you actually do? Yeah.
Thank you for giving me a chance to talk about this.
Yeah.
So Pittsfield is a Working Cities community. This Working Cities was funded by the Boston Fed, and our Working Cities model is based on the Bridges Out of Poverty model. And poverty is one of those things that has been, for me, something that I felt I didn't have a very good understanding of. Like, I didn't understand the dynamics of it. I felt that, maybe I was somewhat misinformed about the experience people have when they're in poverty. And So as I started to learn more, and listen, I don't have all the answers, but I do have intellectual curiosity. And so as I started hearing more about this from people I spend time with, I got more and more intrigued. Like, what do you mean by these middle-class models? What does that mean when you say we're imposing policies or institutions on people in poverty that don't respond? Like, what? Here we are, we're trying to provide all kinds of services, but you're saying that it's not working. Well, I guess it's not, because we've had entrenched poverty in for generations. So the Working Cities sponsored 2 full-day training sessions, and I had my entire senior management team, including me, at this 2-day training. And I think it was a month apart. So we had one day and then a month later the other day. And my purpose in doing that was for my own self, to understand more about what is this model, what is the goal of Working Cities, and how does government connect to it? Because poverty is an issue in our community, and we have more concentrated poverty in certain parts of our city, and we can't pretend that it doesn't exist.
Exactly.
And so I have to tell you that of all the things that I've done in the last 4 years, going through that training was enlightening. It was the most profound learning experience I've had in a very long time, because I really started to understand that middle class and upper people with wealth, people in the middle class and people in poverty speak a very different language. The word money means something completely different to people in poverty as it does to people in the middle class or people with wealth. The word success means something very different. The idea of achievement means something different. So take money, for example. Here's the thing that I learned about money. This is a thing that all of us have and need and want, and it's necessary part of our lives. Right. People in poverty, when they get access to money, their idea is to spend it right away. People in the middle class will get money and they will plan for it and save it and, pay their bills. And, it's a very structured. People with wealth will conserve their money. So understanding now that I understand that they're not seeing money the same way that I do, now I understand why someone in a situation that's impoverished might be making a decision that I don't understand. And now I can empathize with it.
So how does that translate into your leadership and how you approach that in the future and now?
So here's a really good example of that. Government is a middle-class institution, very structured.
That's so true.
It's a middle-class institution where it's very structured, and we have very specific definitions of success and achievement, and we have a lot of meetings. And if you want to come to a meeting and learn about something that's happening in your neighborhood, you're going to come to City Hall at 7:00 on Tuesday night. And we're going to tell you about it the week before. And people who are living in the moment, people in poverty live in the moment. They cannot a week out say, I'm going to go to that 7:00 meeting on Tuesday night at City Hall. First of all, I can't. My universe doesn't operate on that system of advanced planning. I probably can't get there because I don't have adequate transportation. Maybe I don't have childcare. And besides now, a family member is in immediate crisis and I have to be there for that family member. So so the idea that we can keep having meetings at night in City Hall and respond to people in the neighborhoods, let's bring the meeting to the neighborhood at a time where people can come and have childcare. They can walk to the location of the meeting. We can have our staff there. That's just one small example of how we can be different as a government organization to be responsive to people in poverty.
I really like that because actually Devin was at my business partner, Devin, sitting over here on the mic. He was at the one you were at. And he was the one that came back and told me, said, Mayor Tyer had her whole staff there. And I was
you were at that training, Devin?
Oh, it was fantastic.
Wasn't it amazing?
It was mind-blowing.
Totally mind-blowing, right? I think about it. Honestly, I think about it, John, every day.
Wow.
And I am encouraging business leaders and other organizations who have this stuck mentality about how to serve to participate in these trainings.
It just gives you such a better frame and toolkit to look at all those issues and being like, wow, just not simple concepts, very complex concepts like money mean completely different things.
That's right.
People, and that blew me away.
It was really fascinating.
I thought it was really cool because I felt like so many things I was trying to explain to Devin in that class.
White millennial.
No, yeah, because I was like, oh my God, I'm trying to explain this. But when he came back, he's like, I got it. I really understand it. And then when he told me that you required all your staff to be there, I'm just going to say, as a person of color who came from poverty, that spoke volumes. I'm like, I want to be with someone who is about that.
And
that makes me feel like that I am validated and valued, and you're really trying to understand me or a situation of where I came from.
Thank you. I wanted to correct my judgments.
Wow. Talk more about that.
I wanted to correct my judgments. I had opinions about people in poverty. Why aren't you just going and getting a job?
Wow.
You know, and that whole experience and those conversations that I continue to have with the team at Working Cities helps me to constantly correct my judgments.
And as a leader, you have to be humble enough to know that that's what you need to do in order to be effective.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. I really do not think I know everything.
Right.
But I'm curious about a lot of things.
Yeah.
But I'm also understand that, you know, we can't keep doing the same thing all the time and expecting change or a different result.
It's funny you say that because, okay, so we can delve into some really cool stuff here because I love that. One of the complaints I'm hearing, and I've only been here a year, is why are we saving small businesses downtown? Why are we spending this pot of money in this certain way? It's supposed to be for economic growth, but I'd rather not see it for that. I'd rather see it for roads. And there's also this conversation about, well, you've invested in 8 businesses and they haven't really, how do you want to tell people what your thought process is around that? Because I think that just needs to be addressed so we can move through that.
Yeah. So I think part of the environment that I'm in is not that I get to make all the decisions. No matter what anyone says, the mayor does not have unilateral authority over anything.
Despite what people may believe.
Despite what people may think or believe or even so, you know, there's a system of checks and balances, and there's a reason why we have an elected city council, an elected school committee, and a mayor. Because in community life, there needs to be equal representation. And you know what? Even when I don't like some of the things that members of the city council or the school committee are doing, they're entitled to have a different opinion.
Yeah.
They're entitled to object to what I'm doing. Where my frustration in this relationship that exists, that's necessary and required, is when there isn't a willingness to compromise. I am always willing to compromise. I'm always willing to go back to the table and tinker with an idea or a concept. And we've done that a number of times in the last 4 years. And sadly, a small number of elected members of the city council, do not extend that compromise back. So it's, Mayor, we don't like this, and this about your idea. So I say, okay, let me take it back to the team. We'll see if we can tinker it and make it a little, make it better. So we do that and we present it back, and then they say, oh, okay, well, you know what? We don't like this, and this. So, and again, I have to take a deep breath and work to correct my judgment about that.
Right.
Because they're entitled to have their opinion. My hope is always, though, that comes from a sincere place, a sincere difference of opinion, a sincere belief that this is not right for Pittsfield versus purely political gamesmanship. So, yeah. Did I get off track on the question, John? I feel like I might have.
A little bit.
Go back to that.
I think
what was
there's this pot of money that's out there. Some people have used it. People have complained that you use it for economic growth, and some people say you need to use it for the roads.
Yes.
So let's just dispel the myths and parse through it, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions and misjudgments and also misinformation. So what I want to do is give you an opportunity to really speak to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have in the city of Pittsfield this economic development fund.
Yes.
Which was given as a gift to the city by General Electric when they left our community.
Yeah.
And we've already talked a lot about the impacts of that. So they gave the city $1 million a year for 10 years, and we put it into an economic development fund for the purposes of rebuilding our economy. And so that fund is available to a business that's here now or one that wants to come here if they're putting their own capital money into a business venture, if they're creating jobs, right? So we have sort of a framework for how is someone eligible for this fund, right? So that's one tool in the economy package. There's lots of other tools that are available to people. So for example, if you're a small business owner and you're struggling and you're on North Street and we send in our experts and we see that maybe your marketing plan isn't quite what it needs to be, we can give you a technical assistance grant to help you beef up your marketing plan. Or maybe you need accounting services or you need an attorney. And we can give you some resources to bring that professional expertise into your business. You have to come and ask us, though, because we're not mind readers, right? So if someone is out there struggling, please don't struggle alone. Come knock on our door. We can probably help you. So that's sort of one avenue for how we help businesses and how, and we've helped businesses that are like Wayfair, global e-commerce company, all the way down to small retail shops on North Street. Not every business has the right combination of factors to be successful, but we always want to try to help when we can. So that's kind of the business economic development piece of it. And the use of those funds requires the city council to approve it. So there's like a bureaucracy around it.
Gotcha.
I can't just say unilaterally, I'm going to give $100,000 to John for Speakeasy Studios. I have to prove to the city council and to the public, essentially, that this is a good investment. And people have different opinions about what's a good investment and what isn't. What I tried to do in this last year was take a piece of that economic development fund and make it available to people who need to have some exterior home improvements on their homes. This goes back to stabilizing our neighborhoods, strengthening our community, and a strong neighborhood is good for the economy. And so we've got about $4 million in this fund, and I wanted to take about $250,000 for a pilot program that would put this money right into the neighborhoods for people who might not have access to traditional bank financing.
Right.
And we wanted it to be used for exterior home improvements, like your new windows and a new door, repair your porch, repair your chimney, put on a new roof. We're going to give you this no interest rate loan so you can make these improvements and you don't have to pay us back until you sell your house. And so there was a hot debate about whether or not making this money available for people in our neighborhoods was really economic development. And there was a strong opinion by a minority group on the city council that said, this is not economic development and that's not what this money is meant for. Even though it was going to put tradespeople to work, even though it was going to increase the value of that home. So you've got someone who's under-resourced, maybe economically disadvantaged, but we've just given them a way to grow their personal wealth. Because when your house has got value,
you can pay more taxes. And how does that benefit the city?
Well, you might pay the tax impact would have been negligible.
Right.
But the personal prosperity for the person that owns that home, for if they want to sell their home,
equity
if they want to pass it on to a family member,
right.
They've got equity in that.
Equity, yeah.
So that was a really disappointing moment. We lost that by 1 vote, and so if I'm reelected, I plan to bring this back.
I think it's cool because we were both at the Strong Towns.
Yes.
And Devin was there as well. And I spoke about that. And I just want to really, commend the fact that you were there. But more importantly, that I felt like that plan was one that, people, I guess, as it relates to the issue of class, has the ability to be able to draw wealth. And from that Strong Towns presentation, he directly showed that strong neighborhoods, in terms of that wealth that could be generated within a neighborhood, has a direct economic impact to the actual city at large. And he said that Pittsfield downtown was doing great progressively or moving forward in a good way, but what was needed was real support in the neighborhoods and to bring those back, because a strong neighborhood meant a strong community. So, yeah. That was
another great session because it validated the idea. It validated the concept. And that's why I'm really still committed to it.
Yeah. And I think that's really cool because I think that's something that impacts the everyday person. That's something that's directly connecting that could say, hey, I definitely want to be a part of that.
We had 100 people contact City Hall when we first announced that we were moving, that we were going to propose this. Mm-hmm. And it was really hard for us to tell those 100 people that we were sorry we couldn't deliver that initiative. We'll keep trying, though.
So I saw something very interesting in the Berkshire Eagle today, and I want you to speak to this because I think it's pretty amazing. It's talking about how women, business owner, entrepreneurs in the Berkshires are really a part of the economic engine that's really happening right now. We were at Aaron Sullivan's house. And Aaron was telling me about how you guys kind of got started, how you got involved from the political action. I want you to tell that story because I feel like that people don't get the fact of what I want to know, what I want people to understand is your motivation, not only as a leader, but as a woman, and the importance of that being a part of the political process and the work that was centered around it. I think that's super exciting.
It was an amazing experience. You have moments in your life that you carry with you always. And being a part of that movement back in 2003 was it was an incredible experience. And it really shaped how I serve today.
Why did that movement happen in the first place? What was the spark?
Yeah. So the spark was that we had a mayor and a city council that was in complete logjam. And the 11 members of the city council were all middle-aged white men. And I love my middle-aged white man.
We all
I love him very much.
But no. And there we go.
And
I love that.
This goes back to the diversity piece of this. There are people who have a lot to contribute that might not be from the traditional mold of what we would expect political leadership to look like. And so this group of women got together and formed a political action committee. And it was called WHEN, Women Helping Empower Neighborhoods. Or We've Had Enough Nonsense, whichever one of those you wanted to.
I love it.
Whichever one of those you wanted to sign up for. And I had just bought my first house. And I've always been intrigued by politics and always followed national and state politics, and had started to become more and more aware of the impact that local politics has on everyday lives. And so I joined the Political Action Committee, and I wanted to be part of this incredible movement that was on purpose advancing women and minorities into elected office.
Nice.
And so I said, I want to be part of the issues committee. I want to help the candidates prepare for their service and understand the issues in the city. And as I kept kind of going through this process, I realized that we had two candidates running at large and nobody running to represent a neighborhood. And on a complete win, John, I said, I think I'm going to run in Ward 3. And I came and spoke to the women that had started that were part of this. And there was a rigorous interview process, and not every woman got the endorsement. Not every woman, and so I went through the interview process, and it came at a time when I had a really good full-time job. I had just bought my first house.
Wow.
There wasn't going to be, it wasn't part of my plan. Like, I didn't graduate from high school and say, I'm going to run for office someday. In fact, the idea that the fact that I'm mayor today is completely ridiculous when you looked at my plan. That wasn't my plan.
So it wasn't your plan at all.
Not at all. But that's the fabulous thing about life, is sometimes if you're open to the unexpected, you're going to have an incredible adventure, right?
Exactly.
And that took me my 20s and 30s to realize that I was white knuckling things a little bit too much. And trying to force my life to be a certain way. And once I let go of that and just opened up to what was happening around me and looking for opportunities, either professionally or personally, I had a lot more fun, first of all. So anyway, back to this story. So I decide to run for city council, and I'm going to challenge this incumbent who's a local attorney. I was fearless about it because I didn't know what I was getting myself into. But with this powerful group of women standing behind me, pushing me along, walking with me in the neighborhoods, helping me write press releases, they just filled me with courage. We went on to win. And that was the beginning of my time in public life. I'm the first person in my family to be in public service.
Wow. And how many women got elected during that?
3 women.
Wow.
One of them was Tricia Farley-Bouvier, who is now our state representative.
Trisha. Yes. Hey, Trisha.
And then I was elected, and then another woman, Pamela Lumpy, was elected that year.
Nice.
But that changed the landscape of Pittsfield politics. And that one sort of movement in time has kept women on the city council. We've had people of color on the city council now. And to me, that is the most important part of community life, is making sure elected representatives, the workforce of the city of Pittsfield, reflects the community that we're serving. That's the diversity of thought, experience, ideas, that makes the work interesting and actually meaningful and powerful to the people we're serving.
Absolutely. One last question. And I always pay attention to maybe two, to the hot button issues. We'll just call them that. One is this argument about Indigenous Day versus Columbus Day, and this whole ideal around history. Now, I have my own thoughts around it. I support Indigenous Peoples Day because Columbus didn't actually discover America. But how do you balance the fact of correcting history without invalidating someone else's culture and heritage?
Boy. Boy, oh boy. And I'm Italian.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. Like, let's talk about that, because first of all, like, it's an interesting debate, but we have to parse it out and really make sense of it in logic for people. And that is our job, I feel like. You know what I'm saying? If we're trying to move that. So, and a part of it, unfortunately, is your job.
That's right. And I signed up for it.
Right. So how are you approaching this? How are you handling this whole thing? And what is your take, and how do you want to move the community forward from your office?
So, we had this big debate about Indigenous Peoples Day versus Columbus Day as it relates to the school calendar. And it was a fascinating debate. It was fascinating to be in that conversation, listening, as you said, to people of Italian heritage who have held Columbus up on a pedestal as an Italian, which he wasn't Italian. But okay, I understand that he had been adopted by the Italian heritage as someone who they recognized as a hero, I suppose. And then the truth of who he really was and the violent nature of his being. People will say history doesn't change. Well, as we learn more about a period of time in history, we can change our opinions about either a historical figure or a historical moment. And I think part of my upbringing exposed me to a lot of different cultures. And I have a very open mind about, let's examine this a little bit more closely.
Yeah.
Let's test our theory. And so I understand that it was really difficult for some in the Italian community. They felt, understandably, that it was an assault on their heritage. At the same time, when you know better,
you do better.
You do better,
That's
right?
what Angela said. Yeah.
That's what she said. And so while, being mayor requires me to sometimes navigate treacherous waters, I'm also still a thinking person.
Right.
And when I'm done serving, I want to be able to say, to the best of my ability, I honored my integrity and my credibility, but I also respected and made had meaningful impact on the community that I served. Right. So there's those two sort of competing interests, and I think we have to honor all cultures. And when we have to correct the record, we have to correct the record. And so I supported the Indigenous Peoples Day, the change. And, I had some conversations with some Italian neighbors about it afterwards, and they understood it intellectually, but I think emotionally it was difficult for them to, accept.
Okay. So how do we move them forward? Or is that something that they have to come to their own terms with? Or, because I see it as, it's not like Columbus was not a great explorer. He might not have just been a great person at some point in time in history. What I'm saying is a lot more complex and nuanced. There's parts of him that you could be very proud of, and there's also parts of him that you can be very much so that you don't like. Yeah,
I think it starts with having an open mind and being able to say, okay, maybe I should take a minute.
Yeah.
And just set aside my preconceived notions or my family traditions for a minute and just see if there's something valid here in terms of busting the myth of Columbus, right? That's hard for people.
Yeah.
And so having some compassion and patience and understanding that some people just aren't going to be moved.
That's true. That is absolutely true. One last question. This one's a good one. Interesting. I was perusing through social media. Yes. And I saw a comment from the actual debate that was very interesting, but also, let's say, insightful. It was insightful from the perspective of that there was this whole conversation about were there drill practices at the school. Can you just walk us through that? Sure. How did that even come to be?
So this was at the educators debate on Tuesday night. And one of the topics that came up as a question was school safety and security. And Melissa, who is running for mayor, challenging me, had a very long circular response that included a claim that our schools are not safe and we are not preparing our kids for crisis, emergencies, disasters. We're not even doing live action drills. She said it with her own mouth into a microphone in front of 100 people. So you said it.
Right.
And it's completely debunked as falsely inflaming fear.
Yeah.
In a really dangerous way, John, because you're either badly misinformed, which we could forgive, or you're deliberately misleading people and creating and sparking and igniting fear unnecessarily. So we had to immediately correct the record and prove that, yes, these drills are happening. We are preparing our kids for the day we hope never comes.
Right.
And, I don't know why you would make such a, put such a big stake in the ground and not know that it's either true or not true. Now, again, I said earlier, I don't have all the answers. And if I was presented with a question that I didn't have an answer for, I would just have to be honest and say, I'm not really sure what we're doing in our schools. And so that was, one of the fact checks that we had to correct. And then there was another claim made about our district attorney ending an important program called Strive. And that's also been proven to be completely false. 200 Berkshire County kids participated in the Strive conference back in April. So this goes back to straight up truth telling.
Yeah. And what is this deal with, there is a narrative that kids have changed. They're not like they used to. They don't respect adults like they used to, and I get that. But for parents who have kids out there, who are in the schools, because I see the drill thing as also a part of safety, like you're caring for kids in our community. Mm-hmm. What other things that you have put forth to really assure those parents out there that you're working to care for their kids?
Yeah. Great. Thank you. So as mayor, I'm a member of the school committee, and this goes back to I don't get to make unilateral decisions. And that's part of the joy of being mayor, is that I get to talk to smart people who have expertise in their field, learn from them, understand community hopes and dreams, and then find a way to serve. And so on the school committee over the last couple of years, we've done some important things to help kids who struggle in school. So at the elementary level, we created a therapeutic program, which gives kids in the elementary schools a specialized academic program that helps them with their behavioral issues or their mental health issues. So full wraparound services in a place where they can feel safe, where they can be honored, where we can provide them with the care they need to learn. We're rebuilding alternative education for high school and middle school kids who are struggling in a traditional school environment. We've got to have something for every kid.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, we have kids in our schools who are excelling academically or excelling as athletes or musicians or performing artists. And we've got to make sure that we're providing for them. So every single school budget includes additional funds to help build out these important classroom programs for kids and families. And so, those are the things that we're doing right at the school committee level.
What about keeping them safe?
So we have school resource officers positioned in our 2 high schools and our 2 middle schools. We understand that our old school buildings have some flaws in their facilities. So we've applied for a grant through the Federal Department of Justice, a School Violence Prevention Act grant that would give us some funding to strengthen the safety and security of our school buildings and the experience of kids in schools. So those are all sort of things that we're right in the middle of.
Right.
trying to get across the finish line.
Cool.
And we're also, we're partners with 18 Degrees.
Yeah, Backstreet Children and Families. Yeah.
And we're doing safe and successful youth initiatives for young men and women who might be at risk of offending. And so giving them mentors and workforce training. And that's a partnership between the police department and these young men and women, where our police, are in every neighborhood and know a lot of people and a lot of things, and can say, this is a young man who will benefit from the program that we're partnering with 18 Degrees on. So there's that piece of keeping kids safe and giving them opportunity.
I love that, because we have the opportunity of actually working with 18 Degrees, doing some video for the mentors who volunteer for their program. We're going to be, I love the Rap Inc. program that they have. So I love this whole like second chance, or diverting them from because there's been a prison to pipeline sometimes from high school, because of too many resource officers in the school and not in other programs, or looking at resource officers and they are just that, providing resources.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're going back to the relationships again, though, John. Like, they're building a relationship. The school resource officers aren't in the building to investigate and to arrest. If that's what's necessary, they're certainly going to do that. But 99% of the time, they're there building relationships with kids and teachers and families, and making a connection and strengthening that community relationship.
Cool. I think we're good.
This has been a great chat. I would love to come back and talk about other stuff.
You can. We
Thank
would love
you.
to have you back.